Okay.
Gods, deities, celestials, Asgardians, perennial beings, cosmic entities, star giants. Whatever they prefer to be called, they are powerful. Not only are these beings powerful, but there are a plethora of them within the many universes of Marvel, who exist both on-screen and in comic book pages. With a long list of gods, good and bad alike, flexing their ego the living planets, more often than not, join me as we discover who precisely is the most powerful cosmic god in all of Marvel. We start off our list with literally the god of the moon and vengeance.
The god Khonshu.
Yeah, and somehow it only gets more cosmic and powerful from here. Khonshu, unable to enter Earth's plane on his own, is an ancient Egyptian deity that empowers human avatars to do his earthly bidding. Not always on the side of good, but inclined to help save the world, Khonshu has enthralled many of Moon Knights over the last few millennia. Most famous of whom, Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, are in a constant battle with one another over control of their body, which Khonshu seems to relish in the chaos. The vastness of Khonshu's powers remains somewhat unknown. Although it is possible to damage him, he is incredibly long-lived and immune to aging or disease. Under a full moon, he has not only stripped heroes of their powers, but has used them for himself. Khonshu has become the Iron Fist, the Ghost Rider, and the Sorcerer Supreme. He has even used the Odin Force to make Thor look like a fool, though I'm not sure that was too hard to do.
You're right.
Although all Asgardians are technically cosmic beings and gods to some degree, there is all but one who sits above the rest, possessing powers befitting of a king. Father of Thor, ruler of Asgard and wielder of not only the Odin Force but other enchanted weaponry, Odin has proven himself a formidable off-world god and warrior. With unmatched wisdom and a plethora of exceptional feats, performed during his long lifetime, including cataclysmic battles and foreboding future events, Odin has also fought alongside the Stone Age Avengers all the way back in 1 million BC, and helped subdue a celestial called Zagreb, the Sorrower. He's even healed fellow Asgardian Baldur the Brave from the brink of termination. Go Odin Force! Belonging to no particular vessel, the Phoenix Force is a fiery cosmic entity that predates darkness. Edgy. As one of the oldest and most feared entities in all of Marvel comic books, the Phoenix Force has the ability to freely roam space as cosmic energy, or bond itself to selected hosts. Preferring telepaths and telekinetics, the Phoenix Force has also bonded with a handful of other mutants and metahumans. As most notably seen with Jean Grey, the Phoenix Force can cause even the most powerful minds to go completely mad once enveloped. Capable of destroying entire planets and even worse, the Phoenix Force actually possesses its own realm that serves as an afterlife known as the White Hot Room. Currently contained within the mind and body of Echo, the Phoenix Force continues to condemn the unworthy. As far as the MCU, do you think they'll introduce the Phoenix Force in the Disney Plus Echo series? Or will the third time be the charm for Jean Grey and the X-Men? Do you like the Juggernaut? Yeah, well, he's not on this list. But the most militant and evil of all demonic entities, Cyttorak, certainly is. How are these two things related? Well, let me catch you up. Cyttorak, 1/8 of the magical Octessence beings, competed against his 7 counterparts in the Wager of Octessence. Clever name. Essentially, they each created a gem, which were all hidden in different locations on Earth. The first men to touch each gem would be dubbed Exemplars, while also gaining all the power of whichever Octessence's gem they found. Simple, right? So, Cain Marko, stepbrother of Professor Charles Xavier, found the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, which transformed him into the unstoppable Juggernaut. You'd probably think with all of the destruction the Juggernaut has caused on his own over the years that Cyttorak would qualify for this list simply based off that. But Cyttorak is much more powerful, with even Mephisto acknowledging his position as the underworld's most demonic. Trapped in a pocket dimension by magical forces in hopes of keeping him and his destruction at bay, Cyttorak is one of the more underrated cosmic gods on our list. Said to be the most powerful being in the galaxy, Uatu the Watcher doesn't even crack the top 10 on our list, and that's saying something.
Hey, wait, where are you going?
The most familiar of the Watchers and star of Marvel's What If series on Disney+, Uatu possesses the same omniscient powers as the rest of his race.
We've seen this before.
Immortality, interdimensionality, and multiversal travel on a whim. If it wasn't for Uatu's vow of non-interference, there may not have ever been a need for the Avengers. It cannot be an easy life, knowing what every other sentient life form is thinking at all times. Uatu is so powerful that he has the ability to choose to perish, go to the afterlife, and then choose to live again. Choices, choices. Uatu the Watcher could quite possibly be one of the most powerful cosmic forces in the entire Marvel Universe. Unlike Uatu, however, this is something we may never know. One day, you're just a regular old humanoid called Galen living on your paradise of a homeworld, Ta. The next day, you're fusing with the sentience of the cosmos in order to survive the collapse of the 6th incarnation of the multiverse. You know, Tuesday stuff. Joking aside, this is more or less the origin story of Galactus. A cosmic being that hungers for and feeds on energy found in planets, Galactus also possesses the power cosmic, which he uses to empower his heralds, such as the Silver Surfer, who then proceed to scout worlds deemed worthy of consumption. Literally the sentience of a no longer existing universe, Galactus may be one of the most terrifying cosmic entities in the history of Marvel Comics. Popular with book readers and moviegoers alike, there seems to be a calling online for Galactus to be the next Thanos-level threat for Earth's mightiest heroes in the MCU. Personally, I'm just excited to see Galactus again on the big screen, provided he's nothing like the version we saw in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Eldritch deity and creator of the symbiotes. We can all thank Null for the likes of iconic villains such as Venom, Carnage, and even Gore the God Butcher.
All gods will die.
Minding his own business, contempt in his void of darkness, Null was awoken from a slumber by the Celestials and their light of creation. Enraged, Null created the first symbiote in the form of All Black, the Necrosword, using it to vanquish one of the cosmic giants. After refining his blade utilizing the divine force of the Celestial's severed skull, and waging war against the light, Null found himself stranded on a desolate planet, which he inhabited by creating our favorite amorphous parasites. Cute. With Null hell-bent on destroying and corrupting anything good, it's crazy to think that such an ancient and evil force wouldn't be a problem if those pesky good guys were just minding their own business for once. How dare they try and create the 7th iteration of the cosmos? At least we got one good thing out of it in Spider-Man's black suit, though. Well, maybe that wasn't always so good either. Once an elder god of Earth who degenerated into an evil and demonic entity, Chthon used the godly powers to create a book called the Darkhold, the Book of Sins. The Darkhold is indestructible and contains all of Chthon's evil works and spells, which he uses to influence some of the strongest life forms in all of the Marvel Universe. With the Darkhold being featured so prominently in the MCU, most notably in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, you have to suspect that we'll be seeing Chthon on our screens sooner than later. The originator of chaos magic, Chthon is able to manipulate nature, turn people into stone, and even resurrect corpses to be used as henchmen. By looking directly at his true form's face, people have literally melted in fear, and the realm he resides in is said to inflict pain beyond pain once entered. Could Chthon be the one manipulating Elizabeth Olsen's Wanda Maximoff this whole time? Kronos, a brilliant scientist and ruler of the Eternals of Earth, was caught in a cosmic catastrophe when an explosion in his laboratory destroyed his physical body and home planet, Titanos. Luckily for Kronos, his mind amalgamated with time and space, transforming him into a powerful cosmic entity. Considered the bodiless embodiment of time, Kronos has the ability to manipulate inanimate matter and even control the souls of deceased mortals. Not necessarily a good guy, Kronos is not considered a villain either. He's often on the side of peace, as shown in past battles with his brother Uranos. Furthermore, he's had a long-running connection with the Mad Titan Thanos. Technically, he's the grandfather of Thanos, who was only conceived with his scientific aid. With all of these connections that have also been made inside the MCU, perhaps sooner than later we'll get to see some Family Feud on TV. The first two of the 4 cornerstones of the universe, death and eternity, sit directly across from each other on the spatial axis. Complete opposites of one another, death is driven by the end, feeding off of the souls of those that have passed. Eternity is the manifestation of the everlasting universe itself. Because of this, he is bound cosmically to the core of every other universe in the multiverse. To sum it up, one is the embodiment of space and time, while the other embodies the end of it. Death, with the ability to bend reality to her will, enjoys manipulating Thanos on a regular basis. Relying on the Mad Titan to do her bidding, which in turn sustains and increases her power, Thanos is avidly in love with death, and she couldn't care less about him. Now, I'm no relationship expert, but it seems like those two may be toxic for each other, and the universe. Yikes. Eternity, on the other hand, stays relatively inactive, and is only manifested when the universe is in imminent danger. Brother and sister of death and eternity respectively, Oblivion and Infinity also sit across from each other on the spatial axis. The other 2 pillars of the 4 cornerstones of the universe, Oblivion and Infinity, rank 1 spot higher on our list because they've both done more OP stuff than their counterparts. Simple enough. Oblivion is the god of the void and nothingness. Infinity, much like her brother Eternity, is the embodiment of the entire Marvel Universe. Though able to act separately, infinity and eternity are entwined cosmically as one. Much like his sister Death, Oblivion prefers to keep his hands clean. Unlike his sister, he prefers controlling avatars like the inhuman Maelstrom, as opposed to manipulating supervillains into doing his bidding. Oblivion manifested an aspect of himself, a demon called the Chaos King, who destroyed over 98% of the entire multiverse. Infinity, much like her brother and even more so, stays inactive unless the universe is in dire distress. She also once defeated Oblivion's avatar Maelstrom. Unlike her brother Eternity, Thanos never captured Infinity. Therefore, even though they are essentially one with each other, Infinity gets the nod in our rankings. Just makes sense. Just trust me. Known as the universal scale of justice and the personification of multiversal law, the Living Tribunal's 3 voices act as a representative for the one above all. Surpassed by few and the answer to everything, the Tribunal's function is to protect the multiverse from imbalances and mystical forces. He serves as the final judge for matters involving cosmic beings. Unlike almost every other entry in our rankings, the Living Tribunal has no other alternate counterparts in any other universes, yet he's able to exist simultaneously in multiple universes at once. The Tribunal is such an incredible force, he has even crossed over outside of the Marvel Universe and into the DC Universe, teaming up with the Spectre to save both universes from destruction. Now that's a lot of universes. Now I know you're probably thinking, haven't Celestials been defeated by virtually everybody else on this list so far? Well, they have. However, Celestials have existed since the beginning of multiple timelines and throughout multiple universes. They've existed in many shapes and forms, with many godlike specialties and powers to behold. As natural order would have things, some beings are destined to ascend above their equals, and that's no different with these 2 cosmic star giants. Debates have raged online for a decade over who's more powerful, Tiamat the Dreaming Celestial or Skathan the Approver. Though you could make an argument for either candidate. There are a few things we know for certain. Both are without question the strongest of all the Celestials. Although lacking many feats on paper, Skathan has shown incredible power levels by disapproving the Protégé after she posed a true threat to the Living Tribunal. Skathan restrained Protégé with ease and saved the multiverse. Tiamat's feats, on the other hand, are well documented. Not only was Uatu the Watcher unable to see anything when Tiamat first awoke, but Galactus himself was fearful to hear Tiamat was coming for him. Furthermore, Tiamat has ascended and has been acknowledged as an equal to the next entry on our ranked list. To begin to explain the Fulcrum is somewhat of a challenge, as his existence poses more questions than provides closure. The last stop for Celestials after they pass away, or are destined for reincarnation, the Fulcrum is a mysterious deity that welcomes slain or ascended cosmic gods inside of a bar. Yes, like a bar, with drinks. Why he's serving beverages, and whether he's even his own entity, or is some sort of an aspect or avatar speaking on behalf of the one above all, remains unknown. What is known, however, is that the Fulcrum is full of wisdom and answers. An omnipotent and omniscient entity, positioned as the one the Celestials answer to. The only other being in the multiverse acknowledged as an equal to the Fulcrum has been Tiamat. Ascending above every Celestial that came before him, Tiamat was able to question the Fulcrum, who deemed him more than a Celestial, and asked him the final question, "Will you come with me?" Said to be an homage to Jack Kirby, and even using the alias Jack in his Cosmic Tavern, the Fulcrum is either incredibly powerful or is one and the same with the #1 ranked Cosmic God on our list. God, the one, #1, top-ranked, pound for pound, the cream of the crop. Not only the most OP cosmic god in the entire Marvel universe, but the one above all is just that, above all. The only being that the Living Tribunal answers to, and the ultimate source of love and good, the one above all can create or alter life on a whim. They have seldom revealed themselves to anyone, only appearing in the form of a man in which they spoke to Peter Parker about the acceptance of death as a part of life. They are able to manifest a dark entity known as the One Below All, which serves as a counterweight in the cycle of death and rebirth. Allowing their creatures and nature to play its course regardless of the outcome, the One Above All even chose to sit back while Marvel's Prime Universe was fully destroyed. After deliberation with Thanos, the One Above All decided it was best to recreate the universe, which they did at the snap of a finger. Well, maybe I made that last part up for symmetry. Nonetheless, thought to be an homage to the late Stan Lee, not only is the One Above All unmatched in power and knowledge, they are the beginning and end of any and everything.
I am a god, you dull creature.
Asgardians, Olympians, Egyptians, Celestials. There are so many different gods that have been introduced or referenced inside of the MCU, with most of them inspired by, or at least closely derived from comic books. Some have been altered or interpreted slightly differently on the screen. This video will rank the strongest and most powerful gods that we've met so far in the MCU, while acknowledging the plethora of powerful gods briefly seen or mentioned in passing, such as Bast, Rapu, Osiris, Bao the Dumpling God, and the God of Carpentry, as well as many others. We will instead focus on the most prominent and relevant of the bunch. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. We'll start our list off with a double entry, honorably mentioning two of the strongest and baddest supervillains ever encountered across the universe. Often mistaken or referred to as godlike, the Mad Titan Thanos and Gore the God Butcher aren't technically deities themselves. However, individually they've each garnered enough power to destroy gods with ease. An eternal deviant hybrid, Thanos yearns to be worshipped as a god and use the Infinity Gauntlet to snap away half of the universe, gods included. Gore, on the other hand, despises gods, stumbling across All Black the Necrosword, which gave him enough power to hunt and dispatch them handily. Doing that caused him to essentially ascend to god-level stature himself. So while these two aren't actually gods, they get a well-earned honorable mention. Fun fact, in the comics, Gore actually threw a complete fit when someone revealed to him that people were, in fact, worshipping him as a god. So if this list was about comic gods, then Gore would actually fit the bill pretty well. But alas, it's not, so this is where he's gonna sit. And as far as Thanos, he's often referred to by himself as a god, at least while he's wielding the Infinity Stones. But like with Gore, the opinions of others, and in this case himself, doesn't really matter much when it comes to godhood, when actual god powers are what counts. So no points for the purple guy either. Axel, formerly Astrid, changing his name after discovering Guns N' Roses, is the son of Heimdall and was introduced recently in Thor Love and Thunder, using similar abilities as his father. Training his sword skills with Valkyrie in New Asgard, Axel was able to maintain astral communication with Thor, after he and other children were abducted by Gore's shadow monsters. With Asgardian physiology and showing that he can use the Battle Axe Stormbreaker to summon the Bifrost, Axel is well on his way to one day taking his father's place as the gatekeeper of New Asgard. Speaking of Heimdall, we discovered at the end of Thor 4 that he continues to exist in some capacity, as he greeted Jane in the afterlife realm Valhalla.
Hi.
Welcome to Asgard.
During the aforementioned film's post-credit scene. At one point wielding Hofund, a giant-sized Asgardian sword, Heimdall was also the gatekeeper of Asgard and protector of the Bifrost. While he was one of the strongest Asgardians in existence at the time, Heimdall was defeated by Thanos rather easily, and in his current form is presumably not quite as powerful as he once was. Then again, he is seemingly now the gatekeeper of Valhalla, which might just bring with it its own set of awesome powers, so who really knows? At least he can't see all like he could before, so I suppose that counts against him in terms of power level. Lady Sif is a fierce Asgardian warrior who has fought alongside Thor and the Warriors 3 during countless battles throughout history. Most recently seen barely surviving an encounter with Gore the God Butcher, Sif has also had run-ins and team-ups on Earth with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., although that may have been an alternate universe version of Sif since the show isn't really canon, at least as far as we can tell.
Pathetic.
Regardless, Sif is known as the Goddess of War, and beyond her Asgardian physiology, is one of the most skilled combatants in the entire universe with a blade. Even having lost an arm against Gore doesn't seem to have slowed her down much, judging by the fact that she is now in charge of training the youth of Asgard in the ways of combat. King Valkyrie, one of the last known Valkyrie who survived Hela's vicious attack and reigning sovereign of New Asgard, is a ferocious warrior and leader. On the front lines with her fellow Asgardians during the Battle of Earth against Thanos, Valkyrie was also essential in relocating the Asgardian population to Earth after Asgard was destroyed in Ragnarok. Proficient with firearms and especially blades, King Valkyrie is an exceptional hand-to-hand fighter with superhuman abilities. During Thor Love and Thunder, after confronting Zeus in Omnipotent City, Valkyrie wound up in possession of his primary weapon, Thunderbolt, and continues to use it to this day, at least presumably. The goddess of women and children, Taweret is one of the Ennead, a race of Egyptian gods. Serving as a guide through Mark Spector and Stephen Grant's journey to the afterlife, Taweret has the appearance of an anthropomorphic hippopotamus. Although Egyptian gods can become restricted by the limits of their chosen avatar for the most part, Taweret is still an incredibly powerful deity. Nothing is really known about her combat skills or notable feats. However, like all Egyptian gods, she chose and powered up an avatar of her own in Layla, rendering her a female version of the Scarlet Scarab from the comics. Using the avatar Harrow, who was also the previous Moon Knight, Ammit was imprisoned by Khonshu before Harrow freed her. A divine and anthropomorphic crocodile lady, Ammit is one of the most powerful out of all of the Ennead. Although Ammit is seemingly more powerful than the likes of Taweret or Khonshu in hand-to-hand combat, Khonshu's determination and willingness to do absolutely anything it takes, no matter how violent or nefarious, have allowed him to capture and defeat Ammit on more than one occasion. No slouch by any means, their full potential remains somewhat of a mystery, at least for now. Ascending to godlike status, as revealed in the post-credits scene of Thor 4 upon her arrival to Valhalla, Jane Foster briefly held the title as Mighty Thor. Unknowingly enchanted by Thor to always protect her and weakened by stage 4 cancer, Jane began hearing a then-broken Mjolnir calling out to her. Upon arriving to New Asgard, Mjolnir reassembled itself and granted Jane essentially the same powers as Thor. However, unlike Thor, Jane does have one glaring weakness. If she's not in possession of the hammer, she reverts back to her sickly human form, and Mjolnir is actually making things worse by slowly using her life force, allowing these powers to function. Jane would lay her life on the line to help protect the children of New Asgard and stop the efforts of Gorr the God Butcher, proving herself as worthy as any Asgardian god born before her.
You're all not worthy.
Daughter of Gorr the God Butcher, reincarnated by Eternity and adopted by Thor, Love is a divine child who has already been shown as more than capable of combat and wielding Stormbreaker. Although the extent of her powers remains unknown, as we've only met Love briefly at the end of Thor 4, it was revealed that her and Thor continue to travel the universe, protecting civilizations and planets from invaders and total destruction. Undoubtedly born to be a worthy warrior under the tutelage of her adoptive father Thor, and factoring in her cosmic background and origin story, Love has the potential of becoming one of the most powerful gods in all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. God of the moon and the night sky, Khonshu was banished by the Ennead Council for his harsh punishment of evildoers through his avatars known as the Moon Knights. The most recent of these Moon Knight avatars being the shared body of Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, and Jake Lockley, Khonshu at times has struggled for control of the vessel that he chooses. Although 2 out of 3 of the personalities' belief systems align greatly with that of Khonshu, there is still a struggle for control nonetheless. After confronting Ammit and banishing her for a second time, Spector and Grant thought Khonshu would release them, only to discover the existence of the ultra-violent Lockley in control of their body instead. What do you think will come of this revelation in Moon Knight Season 2? Let us know in the comments.
Listen well, brother. I'm listening.
Beloved trickster god and brother of Thor Odinson, Loki has made many friends and even more foes along his long lifespan. Loki was the primary supervillain throughout Phase 1 of the MCU and is responsible for the Avengers forming in the first place. Nearly successful in taking over Earth and absolutely successful in taking over Asgard and ushering in Ragnarok, Loki redeemed himself by going toe-to-toe with Thanos, sacrificing his life in the process. Learning of the actions of his alternate future self, current Loki has stayed on the heroic route, helping to prevent incursions throughout the multiverse alongside the TVA. Son of Zeus, Hercules in the comics has fought against and alongside Thor countless times on the page. In the MCU, however, we've only gotten a glimpse of him during Thor Love and Thunder's mid-credit scene. A mighty Olympian and master combatant, Hercules was tasked by his father to retrieve his stolen weapon Thunderbolt, and more importantly, wage war against the supers of Earth and the rest of the universe. Personally, I can't help but get excited at the thought of a Thor vs. Hercules movie, which is more than likely on the way if I had to venture a guess. What other Olympians do you think we'll see in Phase 5 and 6? Let us know in the comments down below. Seeming as though he was once much more powerful and tested in his prime, Zeus currently comes across as restrained, comfortable, and slightly inebriated. King of the Olympians, god of the sky and lightning, and the leader of Omnipotent City, Zeus uses his famous and powerful weapon called Thunderbolt, which was recently stolen by Valkyrie and co. Using Thunderbolt to destroy Korg, Zeus is also able to thwart off Thor, Jane Foster, and Valkyrie for a period of time before his own weapon plummeted through his chest. Surviving the blow due to his, godlike immortality, it's unquestionable that Zeus was incredibly formidable in his day and retains some level of that fortitude still. Because of the fight and theft perpetrated by Thor and his friends, as well as Zeus's general resentment towards supers, the Olympian has tasked his aforementioned son Hercules with revenge. OG Avenger, brother of Loki, and son of Odin, Thor is one of the most battle-tested Asgardian warriors in the entire universe.
Anyone else?
Deemed worthy of wielding the majestic mallet Mjolnir, and forger of the cosmic battle axe Stormbreaker, Thor has done battle across time and space for millennia. Whether fighting alongside fellow Asgardian battlers, the Warriors 3, the Avengers, or even the Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor stands out as the most powerful of Earth's mightiest heroes. Although owning a near-flawless win-loss record when fighting against supervillains, Thanos excluded, Thor has required the assistance of allies when thwarting major enemies more times than not. Not to disparage the literal god of thunder, but factoring that in with his recently seen softer and humorous side, and Thor doesn't quite get placed at the top of our list. As Odin's firstborn child, naturally Hela is more powerful than Thor by default. Known as the goddess of death, Hela is also responsible for creating and unleashing her own necroswords throughout the universe. After destroying almost every Valkyrie in existence and waging war on Asgard, Hela would prove mostly successful, invading her homeland entirely. Defeated at the hands of the fire giant Surtur and his Twilight Sword during the prophetic destruction of Asgard known as Ragnarok, it seems as though Hela's untimely demise was all but destiny and fate. Possibly existing in the underworld or some other demonic realm, it is unclear if there is an afterlife world akin to Valhalla for evil goddesses within the MCU, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me. Father of Peter Quill and totally not a celestial, Ego the Living Planet was a primordial and powerful being. Using a humanoid extension of himself to find purpose in life, Ego planned to reimagine the universe by causing an extinction-level event called the Expansion. An extremely powerful entity, Ego was capable of planting seeds on various worlds, terraforming them into extensions of himself, virtually destroying them in the process. Unsuccessful at his attempt at evolving Earth, Ego was ultimately defeated by his son Star-Lord and his new family, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
Once the king of Asgard and protector of the Nine Realms, Odin was one of the most powerful gods in all of Marvel history. One of the most fierce and respected warriors in the entire universe, Odin was also capable of manipulating his own life force magical and cosmic energy, known as the Odin Force, greatly increasing his powers to unfathomable levels. Beyond being known for his physicality and enchanted weapons, Odin has also been worshipped as a god of wisdom, studying and mastering dark magic, rendering him able to cast spells as well. Fathers of Thor and Hela, adopting Loki and leading the Asgardians to prosperity for thousands of years, although unconfirmed, there is no doubt in my mind that Odin has found himself a home in Valhalla. A part of a race of omnipresent and observant beings known as the Watchers, and residing in the nexus of all realities, Uatu has also sworn an oath of non-interference. With the ability to observe the entire multiverse, Uatu was forced to break his vow upon discovering a variant of Ultron who was able to acquire all 6 of the Infinity Stones. Assembling an Avengers-like team of his own, known as the Guardians of the Multiverse, Uatu set out to defend the multiverse and was successful in doing so. An immortal being referred to as a god, Uatu is also capable of traveling interdimensionally or throughout time on a whim. Because it took so long for him to break his oath, the upper limits of Uatu's abilities remain largely unknown, making him one of the most mysterious and potentially powerful characters in all of the cosmos. The Celestials are the oldest race of deities in the entire universe. Entities with vast matter and energy manipulation abilities, the Celestials were responsible for the Big Bang and for creating all of existence throughout the cosmos. With a variety of Celestials operating over the course of billions of years, they have been individually responsible for a variety of tasks and purposes. Jemiah the Analyzer and Nezar the Calculator aided in the creation of the planets and the stars. Hargan the Measurer and Tiamat the Communicator were used as seeds implanted inside of planets, set to destroy them upon their birth, the latter Tiamat being halted by the Eternals. Urson the Searcher even once held the Power Stone, using it to ruthlessly destroy an entire planet on his own accord. Although as individuals and collectively they are the most powerful cosmic gods in all of the MCU, one Celestial inevitably ranks higher than them all. Known as the Prime Celestial, Ereshkigal the Judge is responsible for creating the very first sun in existence, and by proxy, the first known life force in the entire universe. Responsible for also creating the Deviants, a monstrous apex race designed to ensure the development of all sapient life forms on all planets, Ereshkigal realized his mistake when the Deviants broke bad and began hunting down and wiping out all of life that they encountered. Forced to create synthetic versions of Celestials to stop Deviants, known as the Eternals, Ereshkigal the Judge is essentially the closest thing to God himself that we have met within the MCU thus far. Or is he? The bodiless embodiment of the entirety of the universe itself, Eternity easily secures the #1 spot on our ranked list. Existing since before the beginning of time, Eternity is a powerful cosmic entity and representation of the universe, with unlimited control over reality. Completely free of any physical limitations, Eternity not only exists outside of everything, but is capable of granting wishes and bestowing power upon any living being, as seen with the reincarnation of Love during Thor: Love and Thunder. Although we haven't seen Eternity in combat, it is completely irrelevant, as Eternity could just simply erase any type of threat from existence on a whim, making him the most powerful godlike being that we've met inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe thus far.
What does it take to be a god in the Marvel Universe? Unparalleled strength? People who worship you? A lifespan spanning centuries? Well, whatever it is, the Marvel Universe is absolutely jam-packed with gods and deities that it's a little overwhelming, right? Like, the Marvel Universe operates basically under the guidelines that every mythological god ever is actually real, and while that creates some fascinating stories, it also calls into question just which Marvel god is the strongest. Well, that's what we're here today to find out. Join me as I discuss some of the most powerful gods in the Marvel Universe as I break down their powers, their significant moments, and how they could fit into the MCU if they're not already there. Let's get started right now.
I am a god, you dull creature.
Well, you could argue Loki is at the bottom of this list because he tends to lose a lot, as is his nature. Or you could say that Loki himself got impatient with this video talking about all the other gods and then hexed me, so I would talk about him first. I think both are equally plausible. I want to start with the MCU Loki when talking about this character. When you think about it, his character arc is one of the best in the whole franchise. I mean, who would have guessed that the bad guy from the 4th MCU movie ever would go on a journey that includes being the main baddie that assembles the Avengers, slowly turning into a good guy in his following Thor movie appearances, only for his demise to be the saddest out of Infinity War, but then being so popular that the character was brought back for his own Disney Plus show, which was arguably the most important show in understanding the new multiverse shenanigans the MCU is heading toward. That's just flat out amazing. And I would argue the reason we've seen all of this and what makes Loki the character so powerful is the same thing: his charm. Yes, Loki is a trickster god who loves to betray people for his own personal gain. And although it ultimately never works out for him, Loki is so charming that there's a small part of us that believes him even when he's clearly lying. That's a true superpower right there. But although comic book Loki has shown some amazing powers over the years, the MCU Loki's skill set is mostly relegated to small illusions and fancy knife tricks. Like, the most powerful we've ever seen the MCU's Loki on his own without an Infinity Stone by his side is in his Loki show when he stopped a gigantic building from collapsing on him and Sylvie. And although it was an impressive feat of strength, it felt so out of character that some fans took that as a sign that the whole Lamentis sequence was actually a Loki illusion. When your abilities are questioned because they seem too powerful, then sorry Loki, you're not going to be the strongest god on this list. Yes, there is a Hercules in the Marvel Universe, and yes, as you can imagine, he's pretty darn strong. His strength makes him one of the strongest fighters ever, and he's even been an Avenger at one point. There's a lot to say about this god's amazing abilities, but basically they all boil down to one fact. He's Hercules. He's a strong dude. Do not engage this person in a fist fight or an arm wrestling competition because I'm pretty sure he can turn any mortal human into jello with a single sneeze. Now, I would just love a situation where Hercules meets Thor. Can you imagine the bravado and competition that would arise from these two interacting with each other? They'd get into all sorts of strength competitions to prove just who is the strongest, and I imagine the collateral damage here would be immense. Hey, if they're casting Hercules for the MCU, just get The Rock to do it. He already played Hercules in a much maligned film, and with the MCU all about establishing a multiverse, it could happen. Come on, The Rock versus Chris Hemsworth in a future MCU movie? Please make it so. Bast is the panther goddess that the Wakandans worship. In the MCU, it's said that long ago, when the 5 tribes were fighting for Wakanda control, a warrior shaman received a vision from Bast, and that led him directly to the heart-shaped herb, which of course allowed him to become the first Black Panther and end the fighting between all the tribes. Bast's influence continues to this day in Wakanda, and she definitely seems like a goddess you don't want to mess with. I mean, if I came face to face with a gigantic godlike panther, I'd be rightfully terrified. terrified. There's still so much history that the MCU hasn't explored yet with Bast, but in the comics, Bast was originally the child of the Egyptian god Ra before transitioning over to Wakanda. She's a goddess that is directly bestowing powers to the king or queen of Wakanda, which makes her influence on Earth one of the most important out of any gods in the Marvel Universe. Remember when the rage-filled Odin literally snarled at Loki and Loki looked like he needed a change of underwear? Yeah, that's how scary Odin could be. But then remember how Odin became this kind, old, peaceful man who imparts sage advice before he gently fades away? Yeah, Odin could do it all. The more we learned about Odin in the MCU, the more we realized that he wasn't just an all-powerful king with a good heart, but rather he was a character who spent a lot of his early life engaged in bloody, ruthless, and merciless battles, and wanted to spend his later years making up for all the bad he did in the past. And yeah, thanks to Thor Ragnarok, we now know there was certainly a lot of bad. Sure, he spent a lot of time in that first movie asleep and recovering, and then he got captured and indisposed by Loki sometime in the second film, which definitely hurts him in the power rankings, but still, Odin was a powerful god who could hold his own, and again, no one could snarl like he could. Phobos is an interesting god. He's the son of Ares, and although Ares tried to raise him to have a mortal life, things didn't work out that way, and he eventually wound up joining Nick Fury's Secret Warriors. Although he has the body of a child, he should not be underestimated. He has the incredible power of being able to cause fear in others just by looking into their eyes, as well as all the standard Olympian powers, and even maybe throw in some precog future telling as well. He's a valuable asset, and it's no wonder why someone like Nick Fury would want to recruit him for a team. Never underestimate him, or else that might be the last thing you ever do. I'm gonna keep talking about Asgardians for a second to talk about another Thor sibling that we haven't seen. It's Balder, Thor's half-brother. I don't know if the MCU is capable of making a storyline where Thor deals with another brother after Loki and Hela, but that's a shame because Balder is an interesting hero in his own right. He's not quite as powerful as Thor, but he still works hard to defend Asgard and to serve Odin. And during the truly strange comic storyline when Asgard was transported to Earth, Balder was the one in charge of ruling over this version of Asgard and helping his people get used to the new planet. Sure, Asgard didn't fare so well here, but you can't blame Balder for that. If the MCU wants to introduce a new Asgardian hero who wants to follow in Thor's footsteps, but maybe doesn't cost as much as Chris Hemsworth, then they could do far worse than Balder. Never forget that gods can be spiteful. That's basically the whole reason we have Moon Knight. Let me explain. There's a deity known as Khonshu who's mostly known for being the god that Mark Spector's Moon Knight serves. But the history of Khonshu is much deeper than that. In the comics, way back in the days of the Stone Age Avengers, which included Agamotto, Black Panther, Ghost Rider, and Odin, among others, Khonshu wanted to join but was offended when these heroes didn't offer him membership. So he chose a mortal avatar, the first Moon Knight, to enforce his will on Earth and basically antagonize the Avengers. That led to a long history of Moon Knights, with the most famous being Mark Spector. Now, over the years, there's been questions on whether Mark is actually receiving guidance from Khonshu, or if he's just insane and imagining it. But it seems like now it's a mixture of yes, he hears Khonshu, but yes, he's also insane, so that's a fun compromise. We'll learn a ton about Khonshu soon, though, with the Moon Knight series set to release in 2022. Ares is the god of war, and in the Marvel Universe was worshipped by both the Greeks and the Romans. You see, sort of like how the Asgardians are basically aliens with ties to Earth that were worshipped throughout Norse mythology, the Olympians that we all know do exist in the Marvel Universe and hail from the pocket dimension of Olympus. So yes, Ares has all the bells and whistles you'd expect, like super strength, durability, basic immortality, and then since he's the god of war, he has the added benefit of being able to influence war and combat in all shapes and forms. This would be an interesting type of god to introduce in the MCU, but I would say it's basically impossible since Wonder Woman already fought Ares in her first movie, and that would just be oversaturation, don't you think? Bor is Odin's father and Thor's grandfather, and he's one of the most powerful Asgardians ever. He was one of the gods who created the universe with the use of the Galactus Seed, which is a cosmic heart that will give birth to the next universe. Basically, forever ago, Bor and his sons found the seed and planted it, which gave birth to the current universe the Marvel heroes live in. He's incredibly strong and basically matches Thor punch for punch, even though Thor is said to be the strongest physical Asgardian. He's also, in the comics, pulled a Hela, where he easily caught Mjolnir and tossed it aside like it was nothing. If they were looking for another Asgardian villain to introduce in a future Thor movie, then Bor could make a great choice. Imagine a situation where Thor either travels back in time to the beginning of Asgard, or Bor is resurrected in today's age, giving this new version of Thor a chance to battle the strongest Asgardian of all time. Hela may not be the physically strongest Asgardian god around, but I would argue she's definitely the most powerful. She's the Asgardian goddess of death, meaning she holds the power of life and death over the gods of Asgard. She helps guide the spirits of Asgardians to Valhalla after they perish, and in the comics she also has incredible powers like being able to eliminate someone with just a touch or hit them with a lightning bolt that causes them to age rapidly. So even though the MCU made Hela an awesome fighter and warrior, she didn't necessarily need to be, given her immense power over the living. Speaking of the MCU, I think not using Hela as the embodiment of death that Thanos is in love with was a major mistake. Sure, it would have been complicated, but there is a comic precedent. In one storyline, after literal death shuns Thanos, Hela shows up to basically say, "Hey, I'm the Asgardian goddess of death, and that's the same-ish thing, right?" Followed by the two of them starting a relationship. Imagine that version of the MCU. So in the Marvel Universe, there are gods, and then there are elder gods, which just by the name you can tell are more powerful overall. Gaia is one of the first elder gods created on Earth before any other life inhabited the planet. She's basically responsible for all life on Earth as well. Let me explain. So most of the other elder gods actually were corrupted and turned into demons. And then Gaia assisted in creating Atum, who devoured the other elder gods. After that, she helped with things like making the dinosaurs go extinct so that humanity itself could continue to grow without all the dino competition. So yeah, she's pretty powerful, and fun fact, she's also Thor's mom in the comics. Well, if there's an Ares and a Hercules, then there's gotta be a Zeus, right? Zeus is the supreme monarch of the Olympians and is basically in charge of them all. He's super powerful and has beaten other Marvel characters like the Hulk and even Galactus in combat. So okay, here's why I think Zeus should be the absolute next big bad for Thor to face. Zeus is a lot like Thor in key ways. Zeus has a mastery over electrical blasts and is the leader of his people. Imagine seeing a Thor who has just given up being king of Asgard to rediscover his passion in life. Zeus would be like his dark mirror counterpart, and with Zeus being a little corrupt or cold, it could reinforce Thor's decision to step away from his kingly life and working to be a hero on his own. It would make a great story, so come on, Taika Waititi, make it happen. I've talked a lot about already established gods, but I also want to mention Dr. Doom, who worked hard in taking the Beyonder's power and turning himself into a god, becoming the sort of menacing and sort of hilarious sounding God Emperor Doom. The villain created his own battle world, much to everyone's dismay. Throughout this time, God Emperor Doom was so powerful that he stopped the Phoenix-powered Cyclops, made quick work of Thanos, and even beat an Infinity Gauntlet-wearing Black Panther. Any chance we'll see this character show up in the MCU at any point? I hope so. Yes, I'm putting Thor near the top of this list. Yes, I understand that there are other gods below him who have more power than the God of Thunder, but in the end, Thor has always come out on top. In the MCU, you could argue that Loki is more cunning than Thor, that Hela is more ruthless and stronger than Thor, and Odin is an overall better leader than Thor, but guess what? Thor still wins. Thor was a big factor in bringing Loki over to the side of the good guys and giving the trickster god a bit more humanity. Although Thor held his own in his fight against Hela, he couldn't beat her with just brute force and therefore used his head to realize that they needed to destroy Asgard in order to defeat the evil goddess. And then Odin always looked like a true leader, but everything we continue to learn about him proved maybe he wasn't so great, while Thor only became more kingly as time went on. Sure, right when he became the leader that all his movies were building toward, Thanos came and destroyed everything and ended up sending Thor in a depressive spiral. But that did lead Thor to eventually get a second wind, and now he's in a position to discover a new passion in life. Overall, that's pretty impressive. Through his strength, his heart, his new lease on life, and even his sense of humor, I think Thor is one of the most powerful gods in the entire Marvel universe. Yes, this definitely slants more MCU than the comics, but I think it's still a worthy placement for the God of Thunder. Okay, clearly the most powerful god in the Marvel Universe is the one who created all the other gods. His name is the One Above All, and come on, it's right there in the name, people. He's the one above all. In the comics, the One Above All is heavily hinted to be Jack Kirby, the legendary comic creator who's responsible for the creation of all your favorite Marvel characters. And it makes a certain amount of sense that the most powerful being in the Marvel Universe would be the comic book writer, right? It means he can literally do anything. The One Above All doesn't appear too often in the comics, but I would say the most famous example is when the Fantastic Four are looking to retrieve the Thing's soul and wind up in a living room where the Jack Kirby-esque One Above All is drawing sketches on a storyboard. Yeah, that opens up the age-old superhero debate of free will versus preordained destiny, but that's a topic for a different time. But if you're ever in fear of this supreme being, don't fret. The One Above All is the ultimate source for love and good in the universe, and since they are the most powerful, chances are that love and good will always triumph over evil and darkness in the end. Now the question is, will this character ever appear in the MCU? It would be hard, but with the continuing introduction of more powerful beings every few years, I wouldn't say it's outside the realm of possibility. I said in another video that maybe in a Deadpool film, Deadpool could break out of his film and meet Kevin Feige, who would technically be the One Above All for the MCU. Would it be difficult and maybe slightly problematic? Sure, but it's something that I think a lot of Deadpool fans would like.
We are seeing more cosmic entities and gods in the MCU as we enter phases 5 and 6. Some have been seen in human-like form.
I have seen everything.
Some have been depicted as totems or statues, and some we have yet to meet.
Just curious about something.
That being said, here are the strongest cosmic entities that we will see in the MCU's Multiverse Saga. Now I know what you're thinking. Please, Marvel gods, please, no more Phoenix stories and live-action movies. And while you may feel that way, most mutants are now canon in the MCU.
I know, right?
With Wolverine and Deadpool on their way.
Hi.
The X-Men are inevitable for the MCU as well. One of the OG X-Men is, of course, Jean Grey, who is the most famously known host of the Phoenix Force. So what is the Phoenix Force, you ask? She is a fiery and ancient cosmic entity that represents life that's not yet been born, duh. Although the Phoenix Force is not exclusively tied down to bonding with mutants, she does prefer Omega-level psychics, as they are best suited to harness her unbridled powers. With the MCU exploring the vastness of space and the universe, it is only a matter of time before somebody, somewhere, encounters the Phoenix Force. Khonshu is a member of the Ennead, the race of gods worshipped by the ancient Egyptians. As the god of the moon, Khonshu has empowered countless champions throughout history, transforming any individual avatar into what is known as the Moon Knight.
As my fist of vengeance.
Although Khonshu is a cosmic deity and has shown the ability to steal and manipulate incredible power in the comics, he is, unfortunately, incapable of physically entering the earthly plane. To his detriment, Khonshu is somewhat petty and vengeful, and is prone to not only making impulsive mistakes, but is also susceptible to being tempted or tricked. Because of this, Khonshu snags an earlier slot on our list, though it should be noted he is no slouch by any means. Creator of the Darkhold, which is an indestructible book of evil works and spells.
The Darkhold.
The elder god known as Chthon is billions of years old and is essentially a cosmic demon who has taken on many forms over the years. Chthon is a master of dark, black, and chaos magic and possesses unimaginable mystical powers. He can even corrupt the minds of beings as powerful as the Scarlet Witch, as seen during WandaVision and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The Darkhold has also been present in both the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Runaways series respectively, and where the Darkhold is at play, Chthon is surely watching over. My theory is that after Doctor Strange 2, Wanda's life was saved or preserved by Chthon somehow, and they will both return during phases 5 or 6. If Uatu the Watcher had not taken a vow of non-interference, the MCU may have never even seen the likes of Ultron or Thanos. And when forced to break that vow in the animated series What If?, Uatu was shown physically capable of trading blows with Infinity Gauntlet Ultron, proving my previous statement true. The Watchers are an advanced extraterrestrial race of powerful beings who have been alive for billions of years that observe the universe no matter what happens, good or bad. As I mentioned before, in an alternate universe, Ultron gets powerful enough to locate Uatu, thrusting the Watcher into a fight and causing him to assemble the Guardians of the Universe, which is basically the Multiverse Avengers.
I know what this is.
During What If and Doctor Strange 2, it is made abundantly clear that animated universes are as valid as live-action ones. And having seen Sinister Strange and Captain Carter in the MCU already, Uatu is bound to turn up in the Multiverse Saga.
I don't understand.
At the end of his universe, Galen was fused with the sentience of the cosmos, becoming the World Eater Galactus. No, Galactus doesn't literally eat planets like, chewing on Earth and rocks and stuff. However, he does consume the energy found in planets for sustenance, and is capable of wiping civilizations clear out of existence.
I will destroy their planet.
In order to figure out which planet to consume, Galactus chooses a herald, such as the Silver Surfer, and imbues them with the power cosmic, which, in and of itself, is deserving of a top 10 entry on our list. We have not seen Galactus in live-action form since Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, and even then, he was just like a fiery smoke tornado thing, which is cool, but with a Fantastic Four movie being made under the guise of Marvel Studios set for Phase 6, maybe, just maybe, we will get a proper Galactus after the Secret Wars come to an end. Here is where our list gets somewhat confusing and awesomely trippy. Oblivion and his siblings, who will all get discussed shortly, are abstract cosmic entities that predate the multiverse.
Finally.
And exist on the opposite axis of the ever-expanding universe. Yeah, super simple stuff.
Right.
These entities all metaphysically embody and represent different aspects of existence and the universe. Oblivion represents non-existence, or the primordial void that existed before creation. The oblivious nothingness before life begins. Oblivion prefers to stay out of things and not get his hands dirty, corrupting avatars and using them to do his bidding. The most famous of these avatars being the Chaos King, who almost destroyed the entire universe while acting as an extension of Oblivion. Why might we see Oblivion in the MCU soon? Well, that will become more clear as we continue down our list. Death is Oblivion's sister and represents the void of nothingness after life ends. She is the opposite of Eternity, who will appear later on our list and also embodies non-existence like Oblivion, but in a totally different way. Death is increasingly powered by the natural occurrence of, death, as death is a part of any living being's life cycle. Appearing as a beautiful woman or a scary skeleton, death has no true physical form and rarely ever speaks. Surprisingly enough, we have not encountered Death yet inside of the MCU, as in the comics, her and Thanos are awfully close. Really close. Seen depicted in statues and carved into monuments in the MCU, Infinity, along with her brother Eternity, who we met in Thor 4, embody the universe in its entirety, while also existing as separate entities all at once. I tried to warn you that we were getting weird. Infinity is described as the personification of space, and is an incredibly powerful cosmic being, surpassed by very few others. Though she is intrinsically tied to her sibling Eternity, Infinity is also the direct counterpart to Oblivion. In the comics, Infinity is the source from which the quantum bands draw their power, which then endows said powers onto characters who wield them. Having seen Eternity already in the MCU, and with the third Ant-Man and the Wasp movie on the way, Infinity will surely be present during the Multiverse Saga. Quantum bands, quantum realm, quantum mania, enough said. The personification of time, Eternity, is the bodiless embodiment of the universe as we know it, along with his sister Infinity. Eternity is the first of this primordial cosmic family tree to actually be seen by one of the Avengers in the MCU.
Go, stop!
Gore the God Butcher believed that he would be granted a wish upon reaching the gates of eternity, which was sort of true. Eternity resurrected and imparted some of his divine power upon Gore's fallen daughter, rendering her partially one of his children as well. Eternity and his siblings possess unlimited ability when manipulating time, space, matter, energy, magic, and even reality. Although Eternity is the most powerful cosmic being that we have directly witnessed in the MCU thus far, he is still not the most powerful cosmic god that exists. Eternity has been busy. And when I say busy, I mean like squirrel in a nut factory busy, spawning, for lack of a better word, several all-powerful and nigh omnipotent children that represent a multitude of other aspects that make up the entirety of the universe. Eternity's children's names are as follows: Empathy, Eulogy, Expediency, Entropy, Epiphany, Enmity, Eon, who was killed and replaced by Epoch, Explosion, Gravitation, Now, and Then. 12 children, 12 aspects of reality, all stemming from one cosmic god. And that's just the ones that we know about. Individually, the children of Eternity are probably pound for pound weaker than their dad, aunts, and uncle, if that even makes sense, but when discussing them all as one family unit, this dozen of deities deserves a respectable spot on this list. Love. Love is in the air, and she's wielding a cosmic battle axe.
What did you do?
Oh yeah. Love is a unique character created for the MCU and is not only the biological daughter of Gore, but was reborn and empowered by Eternity and then adopted and trained by Thor. This is one kick-ass little girl who was not only gifted Stormbreaker, but can wield it like a pro as well. Love will no doubt appear a bunch during the Multiverse Saga, and considering who her 3 dads are, Love has the potential to become the strongest character in Marvel history. Yeah, just like the emotion in real life, huh? Am I right?
I'm wearing them.
Here is where the debates and the arguments will stem from in our comments section, as the top 4 entries on our list are a toss-up, depending on who you ask. The Living Tribunal is the personification of multiversal law and is the representative for who is the number 1 entry on our list. Holding the highest authority in the multiverse, the Tribunal is a powerful cosmic entity older than the universe itself. The Tribunal lives in the form of a humanoid with 3 faces representing equity, vengeance, and necessity, respectively.
I beg your pardon.
Their purpose is to safeguard the multiverse from imbalances and deliver the final judgment on all matters regarding the sanctity of time and space. Kang the Conqueror will no doubt have to face the Living Tribunal at one point or another during the Multiverse Saga. Perhaps this is why we saw the Tribunal watching over Doctor Strange and America Chavez as they traveled across the multiverse. The Beyonders and the Beyonder are from beyond the multiverse.
You exist to destroy things.
And the latter specifically is directly responsible for the secret wars that have taken place in the comics.
Avengers!
Avengers Secret Wars is slated for Phase 6 of the MCU, and that means the Beyonder is on his way also. Which is terrifying to think about, considering the Avengers haven't even fought Kang and his dynasty yet. Often argued as the most powerful character in all of Marvel, the Beyonder has been retconned and depowered in the past, sparking debates as to whether or not he really is the strongest.
The Avengers must die.
Regardless, the Beyonder has been shown capable of destroying the Living Tribunal, destroying and manipulating universes, and creating and ending all of existence. And yet, he is still not number 1 on our list.
Wow.
The one below all is the Darkseid, and is part of the number 1 entry on our list, who I'm sure you've all guessed by now. The one below all is responsible for all of death and destruction and represents all that is evil and dark. Not the devil, but the other and inevitable side of what we interpret as God that nobody likes to think or talk about. Although the one below has mostly appeared in Hulk comics, the MCU is beginning to explore themes of the underworld and the afterlife. With the mentions of Chthon, use of the Darkhold, and Mephisto rumored to appear in the Ironheart series, perhaps the one below will show up, or down I suppose, in the MCU sooner rather than later. Number one, chosen one, only one. The one above all is God. Much more than some bodiless aspect or cosmic entity, and far beyond the Beyonders lies who is truly the utmost powerful being in all of Marvel as we know it. The one above all is responsible for all of life and creation, and represents all that is good. As mentioned in our previous entry, the MCU is introducing more themes of the afterlife, including Valhalla, which is essentially heaven for Asgardians. The potential end of the universe is looming in the near future of the MCU, with threats like Kang and possibly the Beyonder on their way.
I'm going to crush you.
Because of this, perhaps we will see a confrontation with the one above all in the Multiverse Saga.
Oh, brother man, you look so...
The first of the OG Avengers to receive a fourth installment in their franchise, Thor electrified screens in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's latest film, Thor: Love and Thunder. Upon the announcement of Gore the God Butcher as the big baddie, fans expected this film to host a handful of gods, and director Taika Waititi did not disappoint, delivering a slew of deities both from Asgard and beyond, like way beyond. We're here to do what we do best and rank these supreme beings in a somewhat particular order, from familiar faces and new introductions to the quite bizarre and rather delicious. This is every god in Thor: Love and Thunder ranked. What are the odds that the titular character of the franchise would make our list? The last time we saw Chris Hemsworth's Thor was in Avengers Endgame. After defeating Thanos, Thor left New Asgard and Earth once again, along with the Guardians of the Galaxy to help those in need across the universe. In Love and Thunder, we catch up with Thor and the newly lamented, and at least in his mind, as Guardians of the Galaxy. With patience wearing thin between Thor and his comrades, and after receiving a distress signal from Lady Sif, Chris Pratt's iconic Star-Lord suggests his frenemy Thor take some time to pursue himself and focus on the people he loves in life. Thor, feeling as though he has lost virtually everybody he's ever loved and recognizing that Lady Sif may be next, he agrees and sets off on his fourth solo cinematic endeavor. As the God of Thunder, with the ability to not only wield Mjolnir but also the cosmic battle axe Stormbreaker, Thor sits comfortably and deservedly at any position on our list. Lady Sif is in love with Thor. Thor does not love Lady Sif.
You're welcome.
Well, he loves Lady Sif, just not in that way, at least not anymore. However, that does not stop our hero from rushing to Sif's aid after her intense battle with Gore. Surviving the fight, but losing an arm in the process, Lady Sif, portrayed by Jamie Alexander, is proven time and again to be one tough Asgardian cookie. I wonder if she'll visit with Shuri in Wakanda and get the Winter Soldier treatment. Last seen in this franchise all the way back in Thor: The Dark World, many have questioned where Lady Sif has been this whole time. Making a couple of appearances in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is canonically questionable to the main MCU timeline, as well as in episode 4 of Loki, trapped in some sort of flashback time loop, Sif's absence has been chalked up to either being snapped away by Thanos or banished by Loki. Regardless, she has been a consistent battler throughout both the Thor film franchise and comic book history alike. A warrior goddess who's fought alongside Thor, Balder, and the Warriors 3 for hundreds of years, Lady Sif ranks among the elite of the Asgardians. They say if you love something, let it go, and if it comes back with Asgardian armor, biceps, and a magic hammer, then it's meant to be. I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but nonetheless, Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman, finally makes her proper return to the Thor franchise and does so in shocking fashion. See what I did there?
Jane?
Draped head to toe in familiar armor and wielding Thor's estranged hammer Mjolnir, it's revealed quite early in the film that Jane has been rendered worthy of the mighty mallet after Thor unknowingly enchanted Mjolnir to always take care of her.
Oh.
Unfortunately for Jane, although deemed the mighty Thor, she is sick with stage 4 cancer. On top of that, every time she uses her newfound powers, she becomes even more sick. As a first-time fighter in this movie, Jane holds her own in battles not only against Gore the God Butcher, but against his army of shadow creatures as well. With all of the abilities Thor would normally have, and Mjolnir responding to her calls first, the mighty Thor could probably give Lady Sif a run for her money. If you haven't seen the movie or managed to sit through everything except for the mid and post-credit scenes because somehow you didn't know Marvel did this sort of thing yet, you'll be happy to know that Idris Elba and his portrayal of the all-seeing, all-hearing protector of the Bifrost, Heimdall, returns after the credits roll, greeting Jane Foster at the gates of Valhalla. Having not been seen since being vanquished by Thanos all the way back in Avengers Infinity War, it's a relief to confirm Heimdall is alive and well. Well, sort of alive, you know, you get my point. Seeing him on screen is what I mean. Heimdall's life has effectively been dedicating to protecting Asgard and the Bifrost. Willing and confident, stepping up to any foe or intruder, including Thanos himself, Heimdall, with his giant sword Hofund, is said to be one of the strongest of all Asgardians. Good luck getting across that bridge. Astrid Heimdall's son meaning son of Heimdall, meaning yes, Heimdall had a son this whole time, head explode emoji. Astrid, adopting the name Axel due to his Guns N' Roses fanhood, is in fact the son of Heimdall and a regular old Asgardian woman named Grace. Well, as regular as any old Asgardian woman can be, that is. After being kidnapped along with other new Asgardian children by Gore the God Butcher in an attempt to lure Thor into bringing him the Stormbreaker, Axel positioned himself in the role of a leader amongst the other kids, telling stories to his peers, providing them with hope and comfort during times of fear and darkness. It is revealed Axel also possesses powers identical to his father's, albeit at a much lower level for now. Being able to astrally project Thor into whatever frightening realm Gore held the children captive, Axel was pivotal in giving the other kids confidence, allowing Thor to keep an eye on them throughout his journey as well. Not much is known about Axel, as he is one of the many characters created uniquely for this film with no backstory to pull from comic book pages. Unafraid while talking back to Gore and refusing to outright stooge on the whereabouts of Thor and his battle axe Stormbreaker, Axel is slowly but surely developing those protective instincts his father possesses, leading the other children into battle against Gore's symbiote-like shadow monsters in the final act and training his sword skills back home. Under the tutelage of the next entry on our list, it's safe to say the future of New Asgard is under gold, watchful eyes. Newest member of Thor's circle of friends and sitting king of New Asgard, Valkyrie has kept busy in the years since we last visited her humble kingdom. On second thought, this kingdom may not be as humble as we remembered.
Hey.
Once a small oceanside village turned into an economically thriving tourist destination, Valkyrie has done a wonderful job getting New Asgard recognition across the world. Old Spice commercials, endorsements, and even securing a professional basketball team, Valkyrie has modernized her flourishing new home while also staying true in honoring Asgardian traditions and teachings. Although her successes are plentiful as King Valkyrie, portrayed by Tessa Thompson, finds herself bored with such a simple and chill way of life. Because, ruling a whole race of extraterrestrial gods whose homeworld has been destroyed is so simple, right? She yearns for what she feels is her true calling in life, going to battle and fighting once more. As the sole survivor of a race of warrior goddesses, it's no surprise that upon the discovery of Gore's attack on the children of New Asgard, that King Valkyrie stepped up off of the throne and back into the battlefield. Ready to start getting weird? Well, I am. The next few entries on our ranked list are sure to make you laugh, scratch your head, or possibly rub your hungry tummy. Although an entirely brand new Marvel character, Rapu holds vast significance as the first god officially butchered by Gore in the MCU, that is. In the comic books, the first god Gore vanquished was an unnamed golden armored god who was incapacitated after battling with Null, the god of darkness and creator of both the symbiotes and the Necrosword. The reasons why Waititi made these changes probably had to do with the fact that anything Spider-Man related in the MCU remains under the purview of Sony. For shame. In Love and Thunder, Rapu was the god that Gore worshipped as his own, egotistical, arrogant, self-serving, and these are some of his good qualities. Rapu is the type of god that demands praise, but demeans those who do. Rapu is a relatively giant deity with mortal longevity and probably super strength and speed. Too bad for Rapu, none of that was a factor once Gore got his hands on the Necrosword, putting an end to Rapu's narcissistic existence. God of the Cronins and worshipped on planet Rhea, nothing is known of Ninni of the Nani other than he looks just like his followers and sits atop a throne of scissors, because rock beats scissors. Hilarious. Another character from the mind of director Taika Waititi that has never been portrayed in the comics before, the brief moment we interact with Ninni of the Nani provides one of the best laughs of the film. Seeking safety in Omnipotence City upon presumably learning about Gore and his initiative, Thor's best friend Korg points out his homeworld's god right away, who takes his seat as a member of the Council of Godheads. Exploring more of the history and tradition on planet Rhea in this film, we learn that Cronins give birth by standing in a volcano and holding hands with one another over lava for months. The Cronins are strictly a race of males only. While the Cronins being notoriously known as fighters in every universe and Korg proving quite formidable himself over the years, I'm willing to bet the blue rock god Ninni is anything but a Ninni. Whether or not these traditions and warrior ways were implemented, practiced, and passed on by Ninni of the Nani remains a mystery, and probably will stay that way until we get a Korg spin-off series on Disney+, but that's highly unlikely.
All peoples and aliens of the universe.
They say every great cowboy relies on his trusty steed. I say every great space Viking should rely on his screaming goats. Now I know what you're thinking. These two, gods, ranked list, how can this be? Allow me to elaborate. After aiding the race of aliens at the beginning of the movie, Thor and friends are gifted with two comedically annoying goats, Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder. Although more or less used for laughs throughout Love and Thunder, in the comic books, these two goats are much more than simple cosmic creatures used for pulling Thor's chariot. Referred to as the Lords of the Goats and lifted directly from Norse mythology, Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder have gone to battle for and alongside Thor on multiple occasions. As children, Loki thought he would trick Thor by persuading him into selecting goats instead of horses for his chariot. Thor would get the last laugh, however, as these two horn-headed heroes proved much more exceptional than any regular steed. Their abilities include being able to traverse the universe at lightning-fast speed and possessing the stubbornness of, well, goats. Yep, I did it. I put Bao on this list. Yet another one of Taika Waititi's insane and lovable creations, Bao, god of dumplings, is one of the most adorable and scrumptious looking deities I've ever seen. With no basis in the Marvel comics and resembling an anime character in Thor Love and Thunder, Bao is more than likely based off of the Disney-made short film of the same name, which is centered around an anthropomorphic dumpling. Not to mention, Bao buns in Chinese cuisine are a larger, steamed variant of the traditional dumpling. I'm getting hungry. Recognized and acknowledged by the likes of Thor while firmly claiming a seat within the Council of Godheads, Bao must taste great with soy sauce and chili oil. It is unclear who or what exactly prays to this digestible deity, but you can be sure that wherever they are in the universe, they're hopefully pork or vegetable filled. Jokes aside, although unlikely to make another appearance within the MCU, Bao was one of the more memorable gods in Omnipotent City and may hold the key to the greatest power of all, the power of money. Bao totally gives off Baby Yoda vibes, and I can see the merchandise checks rolling in already. The leader of the Council of Godheads and ruler of Omnipotent City, Zeus, portrayed by Russell Crowe, is a cynical showman who Thor claims to have modeled himself after. Exposed as no role model indeed, Zeus comes across as cowardly and drunk off more than just power. Acknowledging the attacks on his fellow gods perpetrated by Gore, Zeus is overly comfortable within the safeguard of Omnipotent City. Surely, Zeus at one point in time was an exceptionally powerful god, feared and honored by all. However, after being easily dismantled at the hands of Thor and his own enchanted thunderbolt blade, Zeus at one point is thought to have perished in this film. As we come to learn later on in the mid-credit scene, Zeus is very much alive. Now, with an even greater grudge aimed towards Thor and his faculties, Zeus looks to his own family for help in tracking down not only Thor, but other heroes as well. Which brings us to the next entry ranked on our list. Kept under wraps until the mid-credit scene of the film, Hercules, son of Zeus, is now MCU official. A stalwart member of the Avengers, Hercules has been an often teased and much requested addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Although tasked with handling his father's anti-hero biddings come his next live-action appearance, one would be foolish to assume we don't eventually see Hercules standing alongside the newest lineup of Avengers as they ward off bad guys like Kang the Conqueror or Galactus. As both an ally and foe of Thor on more occasions incarnations that I'm able to count, the demigod Hercules will certainly prove to be the God of Thunder's toughest test to date. Personally, I hope that the title of the 5th installment in this franchise is simply called Thor vs. Hercules. I will pay to watch them fight for 2+ hours easily. Brother, and one with infinity while simultaneously remaining his own cosmic entity, the bodiless embodiment of the Marvel Universe itself, Eternity, was revealed in Thor: Love and Thunder as Gorr's ultimate endgame. Gorr is under the belief that if he is able to reach Eternity, he will be granted one request or wish, if you will. Ironically enough, Gorr, who claims to have lost the entirety of his faith in all gods for some reason, continues to have faith in this one. Appearing very seldom in the comics and making his first official appearance inside the MCU, Eternity is not a cosmic god to be trifled with. One of the most powerful and omniscient beings in all of Marvel, garnering the ability to create matter and sentient life out of nothingness, as well as the ability to end said life on whim. Eternity is quite literally just a few steps below the most powerful cosmic god in all of Marvel history. Staying entirely out of any natural events that occur, whether good or bad, Eternity's purpose is to maintain the order of the universe. With the biggest spoiler of them all being named literally in the title of the movie this entire time, Thor: Love and Thunder is precisely about just that, love and thunder. After Thor convinces Gorr to ask Eternity to bring his daughter back to life as opposed to wishing for all gods to meet their demise, Eternity obliges and returns Gorr's daughter to him in the form of a deity, which is also the living embodiment of love. Gorr, on death's door due to the corruption of the Necrosword, asks Thor with his very last breath to take care of his daughter. Love is another Taika Waititi original character never seen before, but it's perhaps a play on Mistress Love from the Marvel Comics. Thor, now taking on the role of a father after losing Jane again for good, begins to teach Love how to wield Stormbreaker, and follow in his footsteps as one of the Earth's mightiest heroes. Whoa! And that's, my mortal friends, is every god in Thor: Love and Thunder ranked. Did you enjoy our list? Did we leave anyone out? If so, feel free to sound off in the comments and let us know. And while you're at it, consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Thanks for watching CBR.